What does chutney really mean to you? Well, for most, it's a condiment that quietly sits on the edge of the plate, neither demanding nor receiving much attention. However, today, chutney takes center stage. Meet our guest Rushina Munshaw-Ghildiyal, a culinary chronicler and food consultant who has made the condiment the star of her newly released book, Chutney, a compendium of stories and recipes. Thank you so much, Ms. Ghildiyal, for being on Outlook Traveler. It's a pleasure, and congratulations on your new book.
It's an equivalent pleasure for me. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So to begin with, chutney is something that is very everyday, very routine. Why did you decide to place it at the center of a 500-page coffee table book?
I think because it is very everyday and because it is very routine, we sort of take it for granted. But there's a lot that chutney does on the plate. In a country like ours, where we have a very agrarian diet, if you think about it, the Indian meal is very typically grain-driven, and our overall meal flavor profile is quite muted.
Right.
You typically will not cook with very in-your-face flavors. Also, one of the reasons why Indian cuisine is so difficult to codify is because it changes with each person. The thali is designed in such a way that you have your different elements, you have your dal, rice, everything, and you decide what is your perfect bite.
Right.
Now, chutneys and pickles typically play the role of, flavor tastemakers. And you'll decide how much or how little of a chutney or a pickle you want in that perfect bite of yours. But within that tiny little bite, there is so much knowledge, wisdom of the Indian kitchen, traditional medicinal dietetics. There's so much enveloped only in the chutney. I'm not even saying pickles because that's a slightly different sort of food group for me. Chutney is so everyday and so routine that we've kind of forgotten or we don't give it enough credit for what it brings to the plate in terms of flavor, texture, and nutrition.
So, there are over 200 recipes and you have contributors from across the country. Tell us about a recipe that perhaps the readers, the viewers might not know about, and something that sounds very interesting to you.
I think some of the northeastern chutneys were very interesting.
Right.
And I think our readers would probably find them intriguing. Like I am particularly, not so much a specific chutney, but the whole roasting of a tomato and using it in a chutney, which happens in various parts.
Right.
But that smokiness that comes into the chutney because of roasted tomatoes, that I felt was a very interesting flavor, especially because tomatoes came into India much later.
Right.
They're not indigenous.
Right.
I think for me, what excites me is any of the chutneys that are really rustic, the less you mess with the preparation method, the better they taste. So. Right. I would say the ranska is one that I'm very fascinated with. The ranska is a chutney that comes out of the Maharashtra-Karnataka border. So there are variations that sort of exist in that region. And I'm a chili head. So for me, that whole flavor profile really is very exciting. It's essentially chilies. And the real ranska is made with fresh chilies. Sometimes they make it with rehydrated dry chilies if you don't have fresh chilies. But it's like this combination of garlic, chilies, and tamarind, which is just comes together really nicely.
Right.
And I think the whole chili plus garlic chutney, again, as you travel around, it changes. Somebody will add a little cumin, somebody will add something, but the base of garlic and chilies is a really nice combination because typically it gets it's spicy and savory.
Right.
The garlic is savory and then some of them, when you keep them for a while, the garlic starts getting slightly funky and that fermented flavor comes in.
Right.
So I think any of the lesun ki chutneys that we have in any form, which is red chilies and garlic are my favorite.
You have a tattoo of red chili?
Yes.
Whoa, so you're clearly very obsessed with
Very,
food.
and actually garlic is my favorite ingredient.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking just now and you said that you wanted real voices. So when you reached out to these people, were they amused by the fact that there's someone who wants to document the chutney that they make at home literally every day? Did you find people who were amused by the fact that you were compiling the chutney recipe in a book?
I think by now people who know me know I'm quite crazy. So I don't think too many people were surprised. They were intrigued for sure. And everybody we reached out to. And then once I realized when you get people talking, it's like a trigger. The word chutney just takes you into, everybody will have a different story, a favorite recipe, a memory of someone who made the best chutney.
Right.
And those were the stories we wanted to gather. So I think except for my mother-in-law, and maybe to some extent my mum, because that generation always kind of questions why like someone like me goes into all this, you know. They're used to cooking by instinct.
Absolutely.
And handfuls and pinches. So when you tell them, tell me the recipe, they're like, don't bother me. You know, and chutney is you can't really document it. Like my mom-in-law gets up and she makes a chutney every week. She makes the best chutneys. And literally she'll go and even your basic dhania ya pudine ka chutney changes based on आज टमाटर सीजन में गार्डन में टमाटर निकले, अभी नींबू सीजन में तो नींबू. So it changes that rapidly.
Right.
So I think there was a bit of don't bother me when I ask for recipes. So I then start watching people and then just writing down what they're doing. The beautiful part about chutneys is they're very forgiving. So, you know, you can adjust the flavors to your taste. That said, I think it has been an absolute privilege to document chutneys because everybody I spoke to was very generous. They were very generous with stories. Our contributors were very generous with writing for us. There were places, I mean, I've chased people for stuff. I mean, you were asking me what I did. So I also seem to have this encyclopedic memory. So I remember like there was this...
That's a virtue.
Yeah. My husband might disagree with you. So I had a hard time finding chutneys for Arunachal. So it took me a while. And then one day I went to Humayunpur and I walked into this restaurant and they had like a whole lot of chutneys on the plate. So basically I hounded the owner. I made her give me recipes. I wrote them down. Her name is Annie and she was very sweet. And we got recipes, but I still needed, like a basic background. And then I connected with Chas, who's one of the first, she calls herself Chaz. She's one of the first YouTubers or video bloggers out of Arunachal, and she talks about it. And she was a great fountain of information on, because Arunachal is like a lot, like I think hundreds of tribes. And the cuisine changes and even the names change of everything. Totally. So she was, and that's the kind of information you and I can't get by Googling. Yeah, because it's going to be very homogenized information and probably not accurate also.
And very superficial.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
So those, like, of course, Northeast was one area that was very difficult to document. I think MP, but luckily for me, I have an encyclopedia when it comes to MP, which is Ruchi Srivastava. She goes by Greed Goddess, and she is she's like me in the space of researching and documenting, but she creates a lot of TV programming around food. Right. So she's always been she's been my go-to for MP food. Then we had Jharkhand, again, actually undiscovered. It's just coming into its own. Absolutely. And I connected with Dr. Manisha Orao, who runs a beautiful sort of farm to table establishment called Open Field in Jharkhand. So I went there to eat. And again, I just went there to eat because I wanted to record the food. At that point, I didn't realize I would then call her back and say, I want to cover Jharkhand chutneys. And the thali that they had done, it's beautiful.
Right.
I just ended up taking that picture and putting it in for Jharkhand, because it had this lovely kundrum, which is roselle chutney. It's like this vibrantly crimson chutney. And then they do the ant chutney in Jharkhand as well. So we tasted that. And then Chhattisgarh is another. So these are regions where, luckily for us, we also have these what I call culinary heroes who are carrying the bastion of their cuisine. So we have Noni, she goes as Noni. Her name is Garima. And she has been, since the pandemic, someone who's been my go-to for anything when it comes to Chhattisgarh cuisine. So she did a essay. So aise karke bhi, some people I knew, some people I went looking for, but it was like, kind of just literally connecting dots.
That explains why it took 2 years.
Exactly.
To kind of put this together.
Yeah. And some places I had people, some places I had to go looking.
You mentioned it too, that the diner today is seeing a leaning towards regional Indian cuisine. But do you think that we are still there? Are we giving the cuisines its due?
It's definitely started. So I also work on the Godrej Food Trends report.
Right.
And what we are seeing is there is going to be an unprecedented celebration of regional cuisines. It's been growing since 2017. Regional cuisines, then we had micro-regional cuisines. Today we are seeing an even more granular representation where it's going to go down to micro-regional, micro-community cuisines like East Indian, Parsi, Sindhi. Some have already been around, some are coming out. And there are a lot of people documenting, chronicling. There are voices coming out in the form of home chefs. Chefs are going out and looking for their own roots. It's all manifesting on the plate. We are going to see the most unprecedented, beautiful celebration of Indian cuisine in the years to come. The regional cuisines, not just here, but also you're seeing this tide shifting abroad.
Now, shifting towards a cuisine that you have championed over the years, the cuisine from Uttarakhand, you have been the custodian of mainstreaming it. What about the cuisine stands out for you?
It is one of the simplest. So, it's very easy to get complicated with food. But any chef or any cook will tell you to draw flavor out of the simplest things is the most difficult thing to do. Uttarakhand cuisine does not have complex spices. We don't have complex layering. By nature, the region that the cuisine evolved in didn't allow you to kind of spend too much time on cooking or very elaborate recipes unless it was festive occasions when the community would get together and do stuff. So, like one of the legends I've grown up on, I never tasted it from her own hands, but the whole family resonates around the same Nani Mohini Raturi who did the til tomato ki chutney. Her aate ka jhol. So jhol is like a derivative word which means gravy. Okay, and she would make an aate ka. So large families, lots of mouths to feed. Anybody could walk in any time and you suddenly had to extend a meal for 3 more people.
Right.
So it became very adept at creating gravies to eat with rice because rice was the main grain.
Right.
So aate ka jhol was basically aata पानी में घोला और उसको spices डाल के cook किया. And नानी के हाथ का आटे का झोल was supposed to be legendary. I've eaten my mom-in-law's version, which is legendary, so I'm pretty sure her mother's version was even more so.
So from what I've gathered that you spoke about Uttarakhand's cuisine, the one thing that stands out is its dependence on seasonal ingredients, locally available produce. In an age where farm to table is a very rising movement in the food world, take us through that aspect of the cuisine.
I think every regional cuisine is farm to table. So when you say farm to table in an urban context, it's more of a fad than a practice.
I agree.
There are very few handful again of restaurants that are connecting and buying their regional produce and cooking it.
Right.
And honestly, that would be difficult to do. Like now, if I'm in Bombay and I'm in Maharashtra, there are two ways that I could explore this. One is if you talk to a lot of people like my friend Shailesh Avate from Triple O Farms, they will tell you that Bombay itself has so much forageable stuff that you can use and put on the plate. A concept perhaps that hasn't sort of reached its fruition yet for us in India. But the 100-mile diet is something like that. And that would be one form of farm to fork, in my opinion, in an urban context. Another one would be you connect with your farmers. You go to your local markets, go beyond the supermarket to forage and get. I also call that foraging. I call it urban foraging. And if you know where to go, you will find these things. But then, is your customer willing to pay for it?
Absolutely.
It takes someone like a Pratik or a Varun Totlani or a Thomas at one point, which is today Gaurav at Bombay Canteen, or Hussain. These guys are making all this stuff cool. But is it a living practice yet? Not yet. There are regional cuisine restaurants that are doing this, and those are the ones possibly where, like for example, there's a lovely restaurant called Coast and Bloom in Bombay that is actually working to use seafood in a very seasonal manner. A lot of your Malwani restaurants in Bombay would give you seasonal diet. So if pomfret is not in season, they won't put it on the plate. If baby shrimp is in season, they will put it on the plate. So smaller places, home chefs, that's where I think farm to table, like Gitika, for example, who does Assamese cuisine, Gitika Sparkgar. Now she sources ingredients and puts them on these special pop-ups, and she gets them from Assam and does them. That's farm to fork in another sense, in an urban context. Of course, when you go into the less urban context, like for example, open field in Jharkhand or the farm in Chennai, those guys are using a mix of locally grown and indigenous produce and putting it on the plate. And that's really farm to fork. Essentially, in my mind, farm to fork is what is in season and growing coming on your plate. It may not be cool and it may not be glamorous, but it will definitely be tasty.
Right. You know, Rushina, this book is another feather in your cap, but what's coming ahead for you?
Well, there's definitely a book on Uttarakhand, which is finally going to be coming into fruition. We self-published Chutney because I didn't want to compromise on anything. And I think the next book we will pick up, which has been in the works for 20 years. And again, like I said, my husband is my partner in crime. And this book wouldn't have happened without him, in the sense that it takes a lot of guts to put your money where your mouth is, print 1,000 copies. And the kind of things that have gone into self-publishing is a whole other level of learning. From, you know, we've done the whole cycle. We've gone to the press, we've picked up the first copies of the book, we've packed a whole batch ourselves and dispatched them. I think one of my biggest joys in the last month has been taking the book to people who've contributed, opening it to their page and seeing their excitement. So we want to do that with Uttarakhand food. So that'll be probably our next project. And then I have 10 others which are like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And he's like constantly bringing me back and saying, okay, you know, let's finish one. And his name is Shekhar, by the way. I've been talking about him but not said his name, so I should do that.
We look forward to all
he's the tadka in my all of the work that I do.
And in your life.
And in my life, of course.
Thank you so much, Rushina. We look forward to all your projects. It's been a pleasure. This conversation has been delightful. Thank you so much for your time. We wish you all the luck for the new book.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I haven't gone completely geeky on you, because I'm very capable.
No, it was wonderful. A very story-forward conversation, and I'm all in for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.